Alright, so we've tackled the 1970s. Now it is time to talk about the best 4K titles of the 1980s. Are you ready? Let's do it. Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Mid-Level Media channel, your hub for everything physical media and entertainment. And before I get into my top 10 4Ks from the 1980s, please, if you can, hit that subscribe button. I would definitely appreciate it. We talk all things physical media, Blu-rays, 4Ks, owning the movies that you love, all that stuff there behind me every single day on this channel. Also, drop this video a like. I would definitely appreciate that. And then comment down below, guys. I've only got 10 movies from the 1980s on 4K. There are so many more great 4Ks. I honestly might have to do a part 2 to this video, but let me know some of your favorite 4Ks from the 1980s in that comment section below. This was an incredibly difficult list to compile because I feel like physical media gives the most attention to this decade. Like, there were a lot of great 4Ks from the 1970s. I did that list, I think, a couple of months ago, so go check that out. I'll try to link that up there, the 10 best 4Ks of the 1970s. And I felt like it was a lot easier to pick that list than it was this one because I think there's like 100 titles I could choose from that were all great on 4K. There's some misses for sure, but I feel like this decade in particular just has the most like awesomeness when it comes to the 4K format. But let's go ahead and jump into it, guys. Let's not waste any time. This is not a ranking video. These are not in any particular order at all, but I'm going to bring this one up first because I just watched it last night. Actually showed it to my son for the first time, which was super cool. And that is RoboCop from 1987 on 4K UHD from Arrow Video. And it had been a couple of years since I watched this, but this is my first time watching it on my new OLED TV that I did get in 2022, but it was a couple of months after this release came out. And my God, did the picture quality just blow me away. First off, I was having an incredible experience already because I was getting to show this to my son for the first time, who's 13. I'm trying to go back and watch some of these older like sci-fi classic horror action films, the staples of my childhood that I want to be the staples of his childhood. If you're a parent, you know how that goes. But anyway, he really enjoyed it, but I had that experience as well as watching this the best possible way that I've ever seen it before on the OLED in 4K with this beautiful Arrow Video restoration. And my God, did this blow me away. Like RoboCop himself, like when he is revealed in that suit for the first time, it just looks gorgeous. Oh my God, does it just look outstanding. The metallic shine of the RoboCop suit and just everything about this movie is outstanding on 4K. Just a really nice grain structure as well, enough there to remind you that you're watching an actual film, but the clarity is just out of this world and the colors of that HDR are just outstanding. Some of the sequences like at night in the actual like Detroit city, like the nightlife, like the stuff where he's like patrolling the streets and he's busting crime and taking down criminals and stuff in the dark, all that stuff just looks so spectacular. There's so much clarity. You can see everything. There's so much depth there. Even the stop motion stuff with the Ed 209, like there's a certain charm to that for sure, but it definitely doesn't age the best, but all that stuff looks great as well. This is really just a top tier 4K UHD disc from Arrow Video, and this is a must own in anybody's collection. And if you haven't seen RoboCop, then what are you doing? Get out there and watch RoboCop. The more I watch this movie, the more I realize that this is just a masterpiece of a film. And I've been watching it since I was a kid. I didn't pick up on all the like satirical social commentary that was laced throughout this film. The characters are so great. Like the story is so great. Like there's a goofy like satirical side to this movie, but there's also like a strong like emotional character side to it with Peter Weller and Murphy and just like his just going back into his past and thinking about his family and how he's coming to the realization and figuring out who he really is. Like all that stuff just really hits, like even more so now because I have a family of my own. And it's such a beautiful film and just such a great story. And honestly, like watching movies like this, it just ruins like modern movies for me because I'm like, why can't we get stuff like this anymore? Like people, like we just don't get movies like this anymore. And I know it's like, it's cliche to say that. And it just feels like I'm an old man that's just kind of like yelling at the sky. It's like, why can't we get movies as good as RoboCop from back in the day? But it's true, right? I really feel like it's true. We just don't get movies like RoboCop anymore. It's such a great film. The characters are so rich. I care about everybody in the movie. Even the villains like are just super like they're not one-dimensional. Like, there's a lot to them. There's a lot to their motivations. You understand who they are. Some of the effects are so spectacular. The makeup is great. The gore. Oh my God, I watched the director's cut, or the unrated cut, I think is what it's called, which they had to, reduce down because they were going to get an X rating if they didn't back in the 80s. But they did the unrated cut for this release. It is so incredibly gory and gnarly. Like, when they're shooting up Murphy, like, you see his hand flying off. It's so freaking spectacular. But all that stuff just looks so good in 4K. And that's another thing to note with this, is that both the theatrical cut, and I want to make sure I get the right, they're calling it the director's cut, but both the director's cut and the theatrical cut are in this set, and they're both in 4K. So that's a really cool aspect to this release as well. There's tons of great interviews here. Now, the interviews are all from the original Blu-ray release that I think came out in 2019. But there's just a lot of great stuff included in that as well, including just a ton of great interviews. One in particular with Nancy Allen, which I just love Nancy Allen. Like, I could listen to her talk all day long. She's just super charming and charismatic. But tons of great interviews here. There's making ofs, and there's a whole thing about how they composed this movie with the composer and all that kind of stuff. So just some Q&As. There's just great stuff included in this release, and I cannot recommend this release enough. Beautiful box set, even though I don't think you'll get the box set anymore with the booklet and everything. I'm going to leave the, but this is just a regular case right here. Great artwork on it, but I'm going to leave all the links, guys, down below for the Amazon links for all of these releases. So I'm going to let you know how much these are on Amazon currently. Currently, RoboCop on 4K, it's pretty pricey. It's $43.99 for this release. I wish it was like $35. This would be a really easy recommendation. And it honestly might be less on the actual Arrow Video website, to be completely honest. But this is a must own for your collection, and it's one of the best 4Ks of the 1980s. So I didn't watch all the rest of these recently, so I probably won't be able to comment on these as much as I did RoboCop, but we got to talk about Back to the Future, and I've got the trilogy set right here, but these just look incredible. This was the first 4K that I popped in when I got my OLED TV, just to kind of test it out. And the first movie, guys, and I can't talk about the third movie because that's 1990, but the first movie in 4K looked freaking spectacular. It's like you have never seen Back to the Future like this before. It just looks so freaking clean and crisp and just fantastic. So just speaking to the first film, because that's what I've watched on the OLED TV, the first Back to the Future is absolutely outstanding. The first Back to the Future is just one of my favorite movies of all time. It's firmly in my top 5 films of all time for sure. But it looks great. Absolutely phenomenal on 4K. And the second one I've seen on 4K, but it was on my older TV. And for what I remember, it looked fantastic. This set right here, guys, you can get this set right now. Let me look at the price for $32.99. You can get all 3 of the Back to the Future films currently on Amazon together for $32.99. There's tons of great special features in this set as well, and I don't think it'll come any different. This is the way that it came to me, and I'm pretty sure it's still in the box set, the hard box set packaging, or the little side loading slipcase. And then I know some people don't like these envelopes, but I kind of like this little thing that Universal does with the Hitchcock sets and the Universal monsters, and I think they're pretty cool. Now they're supposed to be releasing some kind of other box set, I think sometime in the near future, but this is a really good option, and it's still in print. Obviously, it's $32.99. So if you don't own these movies in 4K, you got to get them in 4K. It's a must own. Let's talk about Halloween 3. This is from 1982. And look, guys, when I was younger, I loved Halloween. I watched Halloween 3 on VHS tape thinking Michael Myers was going to be in it. He was not. I threw the VHS tape away when I was a kid. I wish I didn't, because I would have still had it now, because I still had the first 2, but I was like, what is this crap? This is stupid. It took me 20 years to watch this again, but when I did back in, I think, 2018, I really fell in love with this film and realized just how great it was. You just have to watch it as an Elf story of the Halloween universe, because that's what it was intended to be. And when I got this 4K from Screen Factory, I knew it was going to look the best in 4K because there's so many rich colors all throughout this movie. All the kids' masks that they're wearing, with the greens and the oranges and the skeleton masks, all that stuff just looks so rich and so dense in 4K. But there's so many colors just all throughout this movie. I got the t-shirt on right now. So many rich colors all throughout this. And honestly, of all the Halloween 4Ks that they've done, I know some people might hate that I say this, but it honestly looks the best. Of all the Halloween 4Ks, Halloween 3, the one without Michael Myers in it, well, he's in it for a small scene on the TV, but out of all the Michael Myers Halloweens, this one looks the best on 4K. So I gotta call out Halloween 3. It is one of the best 4Ks from the 80s, without a doubt. Now let's talk about what's on the TV in the back right there. Let's talk about To Live and Die in LA from Kino Lorber. This was a fantastic release by Kino Lorber. Such a great 4K. This came out in 1985. I had never seen this movie before. It's a William Friedkin film, and it just looks spectacular in 4K. You got the LA, daytime scenery, just that rich, like, sunset, like, sun-bathed aesthetic in LA, like, during this time period. Just looks so fantastic in 4K. All the oranges, all the yellows, and just this whole, like, city scenery and nightlife setting as well. Just all that stuff, all the colors just look so rich with that HDR. That car chase scene, there's like a 20-minute car chase scene in this movie in 4K. Looked freaking spectacular, and everything about this 4K just looked so incredible. A lot of great features here. I think they pulled most of the features from the Shout Factory edition that came out a few years before this. But I cannot recommend To Live and Die in LA enough. This is one of the best 4K editions from the 1980s, and you can get this release for $27.44. But what I may recommend to you is to maybe wait until the next Kino Lorber sale, which will probably be in June. You can probably get this for about $18 then. But fantastic release. You gotta own this movie in your collection for sure. Great film as well. I've been talking about this movie ever since it came out last year. Yeah, it came out like mid 2023, but I don't think enough people talked about this movie, so I'm going to keep talking about it until people give it the respect it deserves, and that is Night of the Comet on 4K from Scream Factory. I think this might be the best 4K that Scream Factory's ever done. It looks so incredible, and pretty much the same thing as To Live and Die in LA. You have the comet that comes down, that hits and turns everybody into zombies and turns people into the undead, and it kind of creates this post-apocalyptic landscape amongst the city. And you have tons of like rich, bright oranges and deep oranges and reds and yellows, and just the skyline of the city in the background. All that stuff looks so great, and the colors are so rich and so dense, and everything looks fantastic with that HDR. When I always forget her name off the top of my head. You got Catherine Mary Stewart riding on that motorcycle through the city with the sky in the background, the oranges and the reds, and all the buildings, just how cleared everything looks, so pristine as she's riding through that city. It's such an incredible visual in 4K, and that Blu-ray that they released, it looked fine, but it looked nothing like this 4K. This 4K is one of the best improvements that Scream Factory's ever done over one of their past Blu-ray releases. So I cannot say enough good things about this 4K. Now, all the features were the same as the past Blu-ray release that came out 10 years previously. They didn't add anything new with this one, but the 4K just looked incredible. Like even the scenes inside like the nightclub where they were hanging out, the mall, just so many rich colors all throughout. The outfits that Kelly Maroney and Catherine Mary Stewart were wearing throughout this film just look great. And the movie itself is super fun. It's like Clueless. It's like a teenage girl comedy set in a post-apocalyptic world with zombies. Like, it's just such a fun movie. But the movie just looks great in 4K. I don't think enough people talked about it when it came out, so I'm going to keep talking about it. Night of the Comet just looks absolutely fantastic. You can get this for $24.25, so it's a really good price on Amazon right now, and you still might get that slipcover with it since it's fairly new. Another one that came out in 2023, I'm going to be talking about a lot of more recent 4Ks, I guess, because a lot of these I've experienced on my OLED TV, which is the best way to experience your 4Ks. But Creepshow, and again, this one came out mid last year, and I like the Scream Factory edition. That's the 4K scan. That looked beautiful. And to be completely honest, this isn't a super upgrade over that, but in 4K, guys, this is the best that Creepshow's ever looked. And this movie is made for 4K. Absolutely made for the 4K format. There's so many rich colors, so many vibrant colors all throughout this movie. It has a really cool like comic book style and aesthetic to it throughout that just looks outstanding. So many great practical makeup effects that just look so freaking awesome in 4K. Like, you would think some of these movies, like, it would just highlight the fakeness of some of these effects and some of these sequences, but they did such a great job with all the effects and all the makeup back in the day because they had professionals working on this stuff day in and day out and just working all night to get this stuff right and perfect the art and perfect their craft. It all looks so beautiful in 4K, and I just love it that these people that work so hard on these films to make this stuff look as good as they possibly could, how that stuff is being immortalized now, and people are finally getting to see it how they should have saw it back when it came out, but they couldn't because the technology wasn't there. So I love that these artists are now getting their due for this incredible work that they did back in the day on these movies. And Creepshow is just a standout when it comes to that, guys, with the makeup and special effects. So highly recommend that one on 4K. It's one of the best 4Ks of the 80s for sure. Let's get into the next one, guys. We got a 4K from Vinegar Syndrome. And no, this is not the only Vinegar Syndrome I got. I got another one to talk about. But From Beyond on 4K is absolutely one of the best 4Ks. Such a beautiful, visually stunning 4K edition from Vinegar Syndrome. Another cool thing about this one, guys, is that you actually get a new documentary that Vinegar Syndrome included here, in addition to a bunch of special features, like new special features, all the past features that Screen Factory did because they released this before as well, but just tons of special features with this release. And this is a Stuart Gordon film, you know, kind of inspired by an H.P. Lovecraft story that they made into a feature film. And I love this movie. I love Reanimator as well, but I might like From Beyond just a little bit more. It's got Barbara Crampton in it as well. Jeffrey Combs is great in this movie also, and it kind of feels like a spiritual successor to Reanimator because it came out a couple years after. But the colors in this movie are so freaking spectacular. There's so many pinks and purples, and like there's just whole scenes that are just entirely bathed in pinks and purples and just so many vibrant colors, and all that stuff just looks outstanding in the 4K format with the HDR and the Dolby Vision. So I can't say enough good things about From Beyond on 4K. Now, I don't have this on Amazon because it's about $50 if you want to get this on Amazon, but get on the Vinegar Syndrome website. The standard editions are still available. You will not get this gorgeous slipcover, but you will get the standard 4K edition of From Beyond for $32.99 if you want to jump on there and get it. But that is so worth the price, guys. So worth the price. So many great special features. A new documentary. The movie looks spectacular on 4K, and it's a really fun, great 80s horror film for sure. All right, guys, let's get into one of the best 4Ks I've ever seen. Hands down, one of the best 4Ks I've ever seen. I talked about this one ad nauseum. It was my favorite 4K release of 2022 from Vinegar Syndrome, the nice VSU edition of Roadhouse. Look at how beautiful this edition looks, guys. So freaking awesome. Now, I don't think you can still get this VSU packaging on the Vinegar Syndrome website, but it is on Amazon. You can get it for $32.61 if you just want the standard 4K release. But like, I had to get this one when it first came out. It's such a beautiful packaged release for sure. And Vinegar Syndrome just did a great job with the 4K restoration here. It is such a phenomenal 4K. And it has tons of features as well. You have all of those past like Shout Factory features. You have brand new special features also. But the 4K of this, guys, Dolby Vision, HDR. Do not ever, and I repeat, do not ever watch the new, if you haven't seen it yet, consider yourself lucky, okay? But don't ever watch the new Roadhouse on Amazon Prime, okay? Don't ever watch that, okay? What you want to do, and I'm sure that looks good on 4K, right? It looks good on 4K, it's on streaming, whatever. But what you want to do is you want to get this 4K of the original Roadhouse, okay? This is the only Roadhouse you will ever need in your entire life. You want to get this 4K of the original Roadhouse. You want to watch this. You want to hold on to this. You want to hug this close to your chest for the rest of your life. You want to hold Patrick like this in your arms while you're watching Patrick on the screen in glorious HDR with Dolby Vision in 4K, and just admire the build, the sculpted body of Patrick Swayze, and just the charisma. And just think to yourself, there will never be another Patrick Swayze, and there will never be another Roadhouse movie, and just block that other one out of your mind. And that's what you do when you watch Roadhouse on 4K. But all that being said, guys, look, if you like the new Roadhouse, it's fine. I don't. But all that being said, such a gorgeous 4K release, and certainly one of my favorite 4K releases of all time. Like, this one just had such a rich texture to it, such a density to it, but had that grain structure intact, but there was so much clarity there. It was so crystal clear, and all the vibrant colors of the Double Deuce and the nightclub, and just everything looks so freaking good. Beautiful addition right here, guys. Beautiful addition. Patrick Swayze. Oh my God, I love this movie so much. Such a great movie. You got booklets and everything else in here. And I just cannot recommend this release enough from Vinegar Syndrome. Highly recommend it. Great 4K from Vinegar Syndrome. They did a great job on that. And Vinegar Syndrome, guys, look, I could have brought over a ton of Vinegar Syndrome 4Ks to talk about because they just do some of the best work, but most of those films just aren't the best. But From Beyond and Roadhouse are certainly some of the best movies that they've ever done. And next up, guys, look, I got to talk about this. People make fun of me when I bring this 4K up, but it really is one of the best 4Ks, and it's a movie from the 80s. So Howard the Duck that Universal put out, I think back in 2021, really is a spectacular looking 4K. Now, say what you want about the movie. I like it because I grew up with it and I've been watching it since I was a kid. But this looks spectacular in 4K. And this is my second Leah Thompson movie in 4K because Back to the Future was my first. But this is easily the best that Leah Thompson ever looked in any movie. And I don't know, guys, Howard the Duck, like himself, just looks so freaking gorgeous in 4K. Like those white feathers and the orange beak. I'm not joking. Like, people laugh when I say that, but all that stuff just looked so freaking cool. And I think that, look, I think it ages really well. I think the effects work age pretty well. I think Howard the Duck looks really good. I think they did a good job of the costume and the makeup effects and all that stuff. And you can tell that in 4K. Like, you can appreciate that a lot more in 4K. It looks great. The movie's not great. I won't say the movie's great. But it looks really good in 4K. So it's definitely one of the best 80s movies in 4K for sure. But moving on to my last pick of best films from the 1980s on 4K. Say hello to my little friend Scarface on 4K, baby, directed by Brian De Palma. So Universal, I feel like I picked a lot of Universal titles for this video. You got Universal for this and Howard the Duck and Back to the Future. But Universal, guys, when they really hone in on 4K, they really do an incredible job with their releases and their restorations, and Scarface is no different. The first time I watched this movie was on 4K because that was the first time I watched this movie, but I love this film. I love Brian De Palma as a director, as I'm trying to watch all of his films this year as part of a little project that I'm trying to do, but this is such a great release. This is the 35th anniversary edition. So this one came out in 2018. Now they did this big like special box set release with a globe on the top, the Golden Globe at the top that just looked awesome. But I got this regular slipcover edition right here. But this movie looks spectacular in 4K, and it's easily the best this film has ever looked. And it's one of the best 4Ks of the 80s for sure. But I love this film. Just Tony Montana, his rise to power, the story, the performance by Al Pacino, like, it's just so freaking epic. And like I said, the same thing with RoboCop. They just don't make movies like this anymore. It's like people don't allow them to make movies like this anymore. Like actual, like, rich character-driven stories that just span like multiple years and are just epic in size and scope and just have spectacular characters and performances. And Michelle Pfeiffer in this movie is so freaking great. So I love this film. I think it's one of the best films of all time for sure. It's up there with The Godfather. Now, I will say, I just watched Carlito's Way for the first time, and that might come up if I do a best 4Ks of the 1990s, and I think I do like Carlito's Way just a little bit more, but Scarface is so spectacular, guys. I love this film, an absolute masterpiece from the 1980s, and it looks spectacular on 4K as well. So there you have it, guys. That is my 10 4Ks from the 1980s that I think look the best. Now, like I said, I could do a part 2 of this. I could probably do a part 3 as well, but the 10 that I picked out are really some of the best looking 4K since they've started doing the format. So you cannot go wrong with any of these releases. But thank y'all so much for watching. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Let me know your favorite 4Ks from the 1980s in the comment section below. Turn on those bell notifications for all future videos and follow me on all of my social media accounts. Those links are down below in the description, and we'll see you next time.